Hello, good morning. How is everybody? Okay, let's get right into it. We have a lot to go over, and it's still very much the middle of Q4. This is the most busy week. This week up to, I think, typically the 17th and the 18th are the most busy. That might be getting pushed out as Amazon gets better and better at delivery. So this week is it though. So make sure everything is ready and on top of things and you have all of your work done this week. We have a client with a lightning deal on the 21st. And we're like, okay, all right, well, we can catch the very last ones. I have actually purchased Christmas presents on the 24th and I had them deliver on time for the 25th. So that's one of the fun things about living where I live. We are, for most products, we're 1-day delivery for free. So pretty nice. And if you do it in the morning, sometimes you can even get same day. Or if you buy Prime Now, which is great, you can get it in the next couple of hours. Okay, let's get right into the questions. Here is one of the first questions we saw this week. Question about protecting packaging during shipping. I want to protect the packaging from being damaged during the shipment into Amazon and from Amazon to customers. If I use bubble wrap and it covers the FN SKU on the packaging, is that a problem? If so, what's the best way to protect your product during shipping? Okay, I always enjoy the questions that come in because sometimes I don't realize, like you don't know how much you know until you talk to someone who's fairly new at something and you're like, oh, right, yeah, I do actually know a lot. So for that one, yes, you have to make sure that your FN SKU shows. So a lot of people who bubble wrap just put the FN SKU on the outside of the bubble wrap. That can be annoying though, because if someone returns it without that, then Amazon will call it customer damaged. So just be aware of that. Unless you have repackaging on, in which case they'll repackage it, maybe not with bubble wrap, and then call it good. They'll probably put it in a poly bag or something. So don't use repackaging. That's one thing. For packaging quality though, if this is your own product, now if it's something that's retail arbitrage and you're getting it from somewhere else and you're just bubble wrapping it to make sure it's safe, okay, cool, that's fine. It's not really that important how it looks or the branding of it, because the product inside what people are interested in. So bubble wrap away and then stick your FN SKU on the outside so it can be scanned, because that's the whole point. If they can't scan it, then they're going to resticker it and they're going to charge you for the privilege. For your own product, make sure that it's packaged properly regardless. You don't want to have it go out to a customer, have them be unhappy, have it get returned, and then Amazon does God knows what with your package, right? It needs to be sturdy enough and tough enough to last there and back again. I think that was a Lord of the Rings reference. Okay. Second question. I may have a problem meeting an FBM order shipping deadline to a stock issue. If I miss the Amazon ship date, but still meet the customer's expected receive date, will I be okay? I don't want to get in trouble with Amazon. Yeah, if you're going to miss it, you're going to be in trouble regardless. There's multiple metrics where you can get in trouble there. It could be the late ship rate. It could be the tracking ID if you try to say that it ships before it goes. There's various areas that you can get in trouble there. Basically try to get it in there before the delivery date, because that's the most important thing. So just get it in, try to get it shipped to where it'll arrive in time. Add the tracking ID, only mark it as shipped when it's actually time. You'll still get a late shipment, but we've had clients who have had late shipments or invalid tracking IDs up to like 60-70% and not had anything go wrong. Now, that being said, if you've been warned for it before, don't screw it up again. So usually what happens is someone's been warned for it, then what we do is we recommend that they go in and they increase all of their lead times for all of their products. Lead time is done typically on an individual item basis. You can do a bulk upload, but be careful of those because you can erase data. But you need to go in and make sure that your lead time is sufficient. So standard lead time is 2 days. And then Amazon did something where they defaulted it to like 1 day for a while. So I'm not sure if they're still doing that. Basically, an old friend of mine was telling me that they did a study and found out that that by making it a 1 day ship time, that they were able to get confirmation of a higher conversion rate by shipping within 1 day. And so they just changed it across the board. They changed it for everybody. So I mean, you may need to go in and change it back. Okay. All right. So I wanted to check for those who are on, if there are any problems with the connection, please let me know. If there are any problems with hearing me, one person did let me know that they are having a difficult time hearing. I don't see any issues on my end, but that is not a guarantee that there aren't any issues. So let me know if there's anything that's problematic, okay? All right, we have a question from Ahmed. Getting a lot of refunds with these reasons: shipping address undeliverable, delivered late by carrier, order not received. Am I getting charged a refund fee for those, and how am I how to get reimbursed? Okay. So for those ones, that happens a lot at Christmas, which is weird. A lot of people don't think about the importance of having a delivery address where their delivery can always be received. My first address in Seattle was an apartment that didn't have a secured, like, they didn't have a way to let people in. And so once I set it up, they added it to the little lockbox thingy. And then once they did it, then it was connected to my cell phone, and then I could let them in and it was all good. But sometimes things still disappeared because they would put it inside the locked building, but in front of my door, and I was on the first floor, and I lived right up the street from a homeless encampment under I-5, because my first apartment in Seattle was literally downtown. And so sometimes when people walk by, they would see a package and wait for someone to go in, they'd walk in, they'd steal stuff. So things would get stolen and lost a lot. And so when they finally got lockers in Seattle, then I started having things delivered to the locker and just doing it that way. A lot of people don't think about secure delivery when they're getting items shipped to them. And so then they get these kind of refund issues, the undeliverable or whatever. As far as getting charged a refund fee, you only really get charged a refund fee when you are in certain categories, so shoes and clothing. And that's usually basically the shipment fee. So you just lose the shipping cost. Amazon doesn't eat that, you do. And to my knowledge, there's no way to get money back on that. It's not your fault, but it's also just a kind of a cost of doing business online that sometimes people just don't get their stuff delivered. So as far as a reimbursement, you're not going to be able to get a reimbursement for that. But of course, if it's customer damage, you can get a reimbursement on that. Clothing, yeah. Your goal is to be around 7% return rate, and so that covers those refunds. So there's not much, unfortunately, there's not much you can do, and Amazon charges you a restocking fee. And they do that because there's a certain percentage that are going to be a problem in clothing. Tracy says, I have that happen as well and cannot reach the customer to see if they want us to reship. Yeah, sometimes they allow you to call them. So you can call customers about shipping issues, but they do hide the phone number sometimes, which is like, why do you even ask? You don't share it. But yeah, you can call a customer for shipping. That's pretty much the only reason you're allowed to call a customer is if there's a shipping issue. Although we did have a guy who regularly called on quality issues, and customers got really freaked out. They're like, "How do you know my number?" I was like, "You should probably stop calling customers. Someone's going to complain to Amazon." But you are allowed to call to try to reship. Okay, the next question is, I recently launched a new product with a new supplier, and the new supplier is awesome. I sent them pictures of my 3 products to my other supplier for a quote. They can produce for cheaper than my original supplier, and it would be nice to ship everything from one place. Is there any worry other than quality control? Okay, well, a lot of people don't think about the compliance piece of this. So that's a thing that obviously I'm going to bring up. So just because you move from one supplier to another doesn't mean that the second supplier is actually qualified to produce whatever you're making. So make sure that you actually check the documents on that, and do any testing yourself if that's actually a thing. And I don't mean testing like you get a sample from them and you're like, yep, it's good. That's not a test. A test is when you send it to an actual lab and do actual tests. And in a lab environment, they can recreate things that you wouldn't even think of sometimes. So when you talk to a lab, you can get some really great stuff. We're working on a project where we're trying to test the basically how long the plastic lasts for, like in what conditions the plastic will break down. And you can actually take it to a lab and do salt spray tests to imitate being outside. And you can have it sprayed with salt water at a certain time of day every day for 40 days and then see what happens to it. Like literally, you can do stuff like this at a lab. It's really cool what you can do at a lab and double check that the new supplier is actually as good as the old supplier. So I highly recommend it. And a lot of those tests aren't even very expensive. The super expensive tests are in electronics. Those are the ones that are like $1,000, $2,000. And sometimes, they're required. And it's one of the reasons why we don't do a lot in electronics. Unless you've got a lot of money, electronics is not a good space to get into as a new seller. Maybe a couple of years ago, like when Anker was like, I'm going to do electronics, like that was okay. But it's hard to do electronics. It really is. I saw a stat a couple of years ago that a brand new product in electronics typically will lose $40,000 before you start making any money on it. That's just insane. I think it's much easier to start in other places. But you do have to check that the product actually meets the same thing. As far as a concern about it all come from the same supplier, we used to make sure that we had backup suppliers on everything at Amazon and at BDA, where we did a lot of work for Home Depot and FedEx and a lot of big companies and sports teams in the U.S. We always make sure we had a backup supplier. We always make sure that we were ordering from multiple places. The convenience is not worth the risk. If anything happens to that supplier, if they get shut down for whatever reason, if for whatever reason they decide to close up shop or move, sometimes they can have delays. If someone important leaves and you don't know it, there's just so many things that can happen with one supplier. It's very problematic. If you ever do any licensing, then your supplier needs to pass all the audits. I mean, it just makes it really risky when you just have one supplier. So we generally like to make sure that we're spreading risk and that there's multiple suppliers that can be purchased from, and that multiple suppliers we have relationships with. Even if some of them are marginal, it's still good to have a relationship with someone who can make a product quickly that you need, because the number one rule on Amazon, the number one thing to keep your ink is to be in stock and to be live and in stock. So having a threat to that is pretty important. Okay. Next question is, my top competitor is using my photo. Could I do anything? Great question. First thing, if your trademark is on the photo, then yes, file a complaint about trademark infringement. If you have a copyright on the image, if you actually filed for a copyright, which if you did, kudos to you. Amazon loves numbers. They really do. So if you have a copyright ID, because obviously with a trademark, the registration ID, with a copyright, if you actually have an ID with what is it? Is it the U.S. Copyright Office? Whichever agency it is, that's the easiest one, because you can just provide your ID and say, see, this is it. Ta-da, they stole it. A lot of people are not going to go to the level of effort to basically copyright all of their images. Now, you are automatically the copyright owner in the United States just by virtue of having put it into the marketplace first. That's kind of the way that our rules work here. And so if you can prove that you did it first, sometimes you can be successful that way. So we have heard of some photographers who have that information on their computer where they can show the initial save. There's some data points in the file where you can show that it's yours. And they've been able to get their the competitor's stuff taken down from that. But typically, you need a trademark or a copyright number from the U.S. government to be able to take down competitors, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way it is. Okay. If shipping by sea, do I need to provide a copy of my passport for customer clearance if I do not have an EIN number? The Alibaba Freight Forwarder requested a copy of my passport if I do not have an EIN number. Is that even safe? No, it's not. God. Stuff like this makes me crazy. And the reason why is not because of the passport. Yes, you do need to be a legal importer in the U.S. and a passport proves that you are a human person in the United States. You have the legal right to import. Cool. But as soon as you import with your own information, your personal information, if anything goes wrong with that product, you are personally liable for it. You, your house, your stuff, everything. If anything goes wrong and you get sued, then you are personally liable. Don't ever do that. If you do not have an LLC, which does not take a lot of effort to set up, takes about a half an hour in Washington State at least. It is not a lot of effort to set up. You can set up with a registered agent. You can do an LLC. It is not hard. Just do that. And then you can take your number from your state. So we get a UBI number in Washington, and you go straight to the IRS and you enter in all your information, and then they give you right there, online, right there, they give you your EIN number. It's all online now. I can register a whole business in Washington State without ever leaving my seat right now. Just don't do it. Don't put your own information on something. The whole point of having an LLC, of having a business, is to have a layer of protection between you and all of your personal assets and your personal self and your business. Don't ever mix the two. Don't use business assets to buy personal stuff. Always keep track of when you use personal stuff to buy business assets and mark that as a contribution. Always use your business to buy stuff. Just don't ever use your own personal information to import products. You're basically saying, I personally certify that if anyone is ever hurt by this, I am willing to fund my house as collateral for a lawsuit. Don't do that. How do I get Amazon to remove retail contributions to my listings? Great question. This one's great because it's really difficult. Basically, to do that, you have to get on the phone with support and you have to complain until you reach a captive associate. Once you reach a captive associate, then they can generally help you remove the retail contributions. But it is a unique problem, and anyone who's got this one knows how incredibly painful it is to deal with a listing that has retail contributions, but you do need to get to a captive associate and complain that way. And it has to be manually done by someone with permissions. Very difficult. Okay, next, is there an escalation email address for urgent support tickets? I have a ticket pending Amazon action since February 2018. The last I heard was June when they replied to the ticket saying the queues are very long for that category. Speaking to seller support is not helping one bit. February. Generally speaking, I suggest escalating faster than that, just a bit. So if you have an urgent support ticket, the easiest thing to do is to write to jeff@amazon.com. Easiest, absolutely. Everyone knows that that's the escalation email. It gets routed to the correct place because he has a whole team of EAs now that monitor that email address. It's all handled by a group of people who absolutely know what they're doing and how to route things correctly. So that's the easiest thing to do. Now, you don't want to abuse that, right? It's really important to use that sparingly and use it carefully. And only escalate when you actually need an escalation. So one of the things that's easiest for this purpose is to just get on the phone and complain to people until you get someone. The longest time it took to get a person who could actually help for one of my team members was he had to call back 20 times. So don't just call and give up. You do have to be a bit persistent with Amazon sometimes. Don't call again too many times and in a too short of a period of time, because then they'll get mad at you. Unless you've got a lot going on your account, well, then they won't get mad at you because obviously it's a business. If they're making plenty of money on you, then call away. But certainly February 2018 is crazy. You can definitely escalate that. Next question. Would brand registry help with that? No, it doesn't help with it at all. Brand registry does not help with retail contributions because the way the catalog is designed, retail always wins. Now they are redoing this. Maybe sometime next year it'll launch. They've been working on it for the last couple of years, but the catalog was built more than 20 years ago. And so redoing that has taken quite a lot of time. How it comes out, no one's quite certain, but the goal is to have brand registry be the winner, not retail. Now, knowing Amazon, they will launch something too early and it will break over and over again. So it'll just be a different kind of breaking than currently it breaks too. So I expect that even if they do launch next year with the correct approach where brand registry wins, it will still be broken for most of the year until they finally fix it. Mike asks, when you say retail contribution, do you mean the contributions from Vendor Central accounts? Yes, that's one of them, the ways that you can get retail contributions. So you could get it from Vendor Central accounts, someone offered your product, or if you offered your product on Vendor Central, those both could be reasons why they're retail contributions. But there could also be retail contributions if Amazon ever edited your listing. And there's various reasons why they do that. They could decide that your information is bad, and so they edited it. But any sort of edits from an internal tool that isn't you, that isn't through Marketplace, will result in it being flagged for being retail. And then you can't edit it from Marketplace. Pretty frustrating. Those ones are more rare. The more common ones are people who got their listing hijacked on Vendor Express when it still existed. That was much more common. Okay, next question. I found my product selling on Amazon China. It is my ASIN SKU product, same reviews, and the seller section, it says that it is directly sold and shipped from outside the United States by Amazon. The purchase is subject to Amazon's overseas purchase conditions and U.S. law. Note, I do not sell on Amazon China and am not enrolled in the Amazon export program. Yeah, that's because Amazon listed it for you. Isn't that nice? And super nice of them, right? Amazon has this program. They decided to do it a long time ago where they did this in Mexico too, where they will offer it on their own marketplace somewhere else, and then they'll ship it for you. You don't have to do it. Yeah, you don't have to do it is one way to put it. You don't get a choice in it is another way to put it. They only do it for products where there is a limited liability exposure for them, because they're obviously the one doing the importing in the other country. So they are careful about that. Being in the Amazon export program means that a person from China who goes to Amazon.com can buy it and have it shipped, or from Australia or from South Africa, whatever. That's what Amazon export program is. It's a customer going to .com who can have it shipped to their country. Amazon choosing to sell it in another marketplace is entirely on them, and you don't really get much of a choice about that once you start making it available to Amazon. That's how it works, right? Gotta love Amazon. Is it okay to put a sticker on the outside of my box saying something like, if you have any questions or comments, please contact us at email address or website? Basically, can I put my website and email contact in place where Amazon can see it, or is that against TOS? Generally speaking, I would recommend putting in that as an insert, and only if you have brand registry. So if you've got your own trademark and it's clear that you have your own business and you're a legit business, then at that point, put it in the insert, because that's what all big brands do. They always give you a good place to contact customer service. That's not unusual. As far as putting on the outside, I just wouldn't put it on the outside, because you have no idea what's going to happen at the FCs. You have no idea if something's going to get ripped or damaged or dirty or scuffed or whatever. So if you put it on the inside, it's much more likely to be safe. Okay. What is against TOS is what's called diverting. Diverting is basically telling a customer, if you buy it on my website, I will give you a discount. It'll be cheaper, so you should come buy it from me. That is not okay. Amazon wants to keep the customer. Amazon wants to keep them buying from them, get their 15% or whatever the amount is that they're making off of you. So that's what Amazon gets concerned about, not you having good customer service. Okay. All right. Received a couple of reviews that were definitely from customers that purchased, but they did not come up as verified purchases. Any tips on how to rectify that? No, it just happens to be how the customer left the review. So if I were to buy something on my account, and I have a business account and I have a personal account, if I were to buy something on my personal account and then I logged into the browser where I use my business account and left a review, then it wouldn't show up as verified. So whoever the customer was, they just left it either not signed in to the account, to their account that bought the item, and so it isn't showing as verified, or they have multiple accounts in their household and somebody else will sign in when they left a review. There's no way to fix that unless they go back and they make a review logged into the correct account. But that, people do that all the time. If they have a shared computer in the household and somebody else's account is up or something like that, that can happen. So either they weren't signed in at all, or they were signed into another account, and that's the reason why it shows up as unverified. Okay, there's no way for Amazon to fix that, because the customer ID that created the review is not the same as the customer ID who bought it. There's no way for Amazon to fix that. The customer can fix it by going into the correct account and leaving a review, and they can always delete the other one if they want. They probably shouldn't review it twice, but only the customer can really fix that issue. Amazon can't transfer things like that. Okay. All right, that covers quite a lot of questions from this morning. There is one thing that I wanted to go over. We are doing some updates to our advertising course. Amazon has updated Amazon advertising probably every week or two for the past 2 months. There's been something new or something that's been moved around or something that's been adjusted. And while part of me is like, sweet, there's some really cool new things that I can do. And yeah, it's awesome this time of year. There's some really cool new things that you can do and some new organizations and new campaign stuff. It's also kind of frustrating because it's all new. Great, thanks. So I actually am updating our advertising class to where all the new changes are included. We have new product targeting options by category and ASIN. There is a new thing called portfolios. Now you can do automatic targeting too by different, like how close the automatic targeting is. There's some really cool new things that have come up with that. Whenever we have a course and Amazon changes things, because they change things all the time, we'll go back in and update. I do not update immediately. And here's the reason why. With something like advertising, we don't know how things are going to work until we test it with our clients, until we test it on our own accounts. And so what we actually will do is we'll test it, we'll look at things, I'll have actual data for you guys. And so you'll get an actual, like screen caps. Here's what's happened. Here's some of the challenges that we've had. With product categories, for example, it's all over the map. Some product category ads were like 1 to 3%, just like ridiculously good. And then for other ones, it was like 300% ACoS. Just absolutely terrible, right? So unlike with certain kinds of other techniques where I can say, if you do this, you should get this kind of result. Product categories, so far, I haven't been able to predict what kind of result it's going to be. Now, there seems to be some sort of correlation between the competitiveness of the category as well as the primary image that seem to be driving a little bit of that behavior, but it's not entirely obvious. And the ASIN one is even more random. So when you target ASINs, you show up in the sponsored brand carousel. And so sometimes that can be really positive and sometimes it can be really negative, because if you're bidding against an ASIN that's really well optimized and really looking good, the likelihood of you comparing well against that is pretty unfavorable. Often they'll look at yours, be like, oh God, no, I'm going back to the other one. So you have to be careful who you click on and who you choose to bid against. So it's been really interesting, and I'll be adding that to that course this week. About this month, probably about next week, when we have over a month of data, because I always like to have enough data. But the reason I mention this is because we have another challenge coming up in January. I'm super excited about it, and we'll have more information for you soon, so you can sign up for it. And all of our challenges are free. And I definitely recommend that you join the challenge, because once it's been set up and we have all of the course information done, we've got all of our stuff and we put it up, it is no longer free. So I highly recommend you join the challenge when it's available, because that's when it's free. So I'm looking forward to telling you guys more about that. And if you're interested in learning more about advertising and keeping up with changes in advertising on Amazon, we do have an awesome course. And if you join our closed Facebook group, which is linked here in the group chat, then you can ask as many questions as you want. And I do answer those on a regular basis. This time of year has been just crazy busy. And so I've been doing my best to answer. Most of the time, the rest of the year, it's answered within 2 to 3 days at most. All right. Good luck this week, you guys. This is the busiest week of the year for anyone who has Q4 friendly products. So good luck. Get out there. I think the top traffic day was predicted to be 28 million visitors to Amazon. So good luck. We are all aiming to do well this Q4. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of your questions and hanging out with you next week. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.